The Republic of Korea, or South Korea as it is better known, has been shaped and created by centuries of repressive regimes, civil wars and isolationist policies. This kept the nation severely underdeveloped and desperately poor until the late 20th century. The Korean War set in motion a chain of events that saw a turnaround in fortunes for the South. In recent years they started becoming more prominent in Western culture. Their national martial art of Taekwondo has become a mainstay in the Summer Olympics since Sydney 2000. Korea has made more cultural impacts around the world recently, such as the internet phenomenon Gangnam Style. However, it was just 60 short years ago in 1953 when Korea was just coming out of a bloody war.
I think I read in the paper the other day, we lost 1,000 men there. Just over 1,000 men I think we lost in there. But never come back. The Yanks lost a lot more than us.
This war flattened the country, leaving Korea with massive debts. In the pre-dawn hours of June the 25th, 1950, North Korea, supported by the Soviet Union and China, crossed the 38th parallel with intentions of making the South a communist state and expanding their Marxist ideologies. This act triggered the Korean War.
North Koreans have invaded South Korea and overpowered the Americans, which then retreated back from Seoul back to Busan, now called Busan. The British troops from Hong Kong were first United Nations to land there. Then we pursued the North Koreans back up. They retreated, you know. We pushed them right back up to past Seoul, and then the Americans advanced, the Canadians came in, the Australians come in, the Turks come in, loads of different nationalities which weren't involved in the actual fighting, but they were supply people.
This counterattack by the UN forces pushed the North Koreans back almost as far as Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea. China bolstered the North's forces with waves of soldiers.
The first lot had rifles and grenades. The second wave had no guns or anything. They picked up their rifles and stuff from the ones what lay dead or wounded on the first lot. And the third lot come with guns, and the fourth lot behind them were the same, had nothing. They collected the rifles, grenades and what have you.
They pushed back the UN forces to the south, leading to a long period of static warfare.
Now the war, when we got out there, became a static war. The Chinamen had often had their flare-ups and attacks and everything, but it became static war, that no man's land between the two lines was desolate, except for nighttime patrols, going out looking for one another and having a little flare-up and running away.
In July of 1953, an Armistice Agreement was signed, ending the war but leaving South Korea destitute. So how is it that in just 60 short years, Korea went from a war-torn country to one of great economic importance? This is how Korea summarised their growth during their 60th anniversary since the war.
We exerted every effort to recover from the war. With the sweat we shed, we began to make a history of a miracle amid the ruins of war. 60 years after the war, today, Korea emerged as the 10th largest economic power in the world and became the chair of the G20, as well as a proud member of the United Nations.
Although the film claims they are the 10th biggest nominal economy, the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank and the CIA World Factbook all listed Korea as being the 15th nominal economy in the world. This exponential growth is often referred to as a miracle on the Han River. The growth, which was export-fueled, saw South Korea's gross domestic product rise from near zero to over $1 trillion in less than half a century. This rise in GDP saw rapid developments in technology, education and general living standards. In the 60 years after the war, Korea also successfully hosted the 1988 Summer Olympics and co-hosted the 2002 FIFA World Cup. In 1953, after the war had ended, Korea was in an economical crisis. The beginning of the Han River miracle was in 1961, when General Park Chung-hee grasped political power after President Syngman Rhee's rigged re-election led to widespread student protests. This resulted in General Park Chung-hee gaining power through a military junta, much like what we saw in Egypt during 2011. General Park decided the country should become self-reliant by utilising a series of 5-year plans. In 1962, Korea started the first 5-year plan. This plan sought to benefit the textile industry and make Korea self-sufficient. The second 5-year plan in 1967 sought to shift the South Korean state into heavy industry by making South Korea more competitive in the world market. During this time, Korea also started the Saemaul Movement, also known as the New Village Movement. The movement aimed to modernise the rural South Korean economy. Prior to this, rural Korea was made up of cheaply made mud huts.
Was absolutely nothing. Once you walk, the Gucci's little villages were just mud huts and paper. Paper put on timbers they cut and the mud slung it and left to dry, and it was so remote, it was unbelievable. You go from valley over hills into the next valley, you might see a little hut. You know, so who lived there then, like, you know, or what they do. Is people just make their own way of life. It wasn't a life really, not to what we had been used to. It was just, you were scratching your head to say, well, what's all this about? Running about on the hills with nothing in it, you know, nothing at all. Just barren land. And of course where all the action had been was just worse because the trees were just bombed, everything was just bombed to the ground.
Finally, the third 5-year plan, that was referred to as the Heavy Chemical Industrialisation Plan, sought to create a chemical industry within Korea. This plan was followed by another 4 5-year plans spanning from 1977 through to 1996. These last plans were not as focused and simply looked to pay off national debt. They also aimed to improve living conditions for all Koreans and nurture small family-orientated chaebol companies. Some of these small chaebol companies that were nurtured during this time include Samsung, Kia, Hyundai and LG.
We went back in 2010 with my wife, which the Korean government sponsored, and which was very good. And the difference to when the war was on is extreme. You know, it's, as I kept saying to Anne, it was unbelievable. And a cleaner country you won't find. The behaviour of the people and the children are second to none. The streets are spotless, and I would recommend to anyone to go there.
Good evening. Britain is back in recession tonight.
With much of the Western world struggling now with recession, South Korea is currently one of very few developed countries not to enter the recession since the 2008 financial crisis. Is there something we can learn from Korea's astounding rise from rags to riches?
Even now, when I think of it, that war, I'm told, is still going on. They've never ended it, and that the men are standing a few yards apart on different sides.
As of March 2013, North Korea has chosen to nullify the 1953 Armistice Agreement. This follows EU sanctions on their nuclear weapon programs. With the armistice nullified, the Korean peninsula could be thrown back into war at any time.